5 channels. And the goal for us is to ensure that we have this conversation. So I would start, Ife, with introduction. I'm just going to go straight to everybody's profile and run through each and everyone's profile, where we're just going to speak about their profile, one after the other. Then I ask the question. They're talking about their agile journey, how leaders can learn from their experience and make the best of what they learned today. Can I hear how many of us are excited? Please, can we share the link and share. Invite as many. So Jessica, by the way, is Jessica. Let me just make sure that I remove all the pin and just replace. Spotlight everyone. Okay. I'm sorry. I want to remove the pin and repin so that you know who I'm speaking with, because we are all using the same background, so you're not mistaken. Okay. Replace pin. Okay. So Jessica is an experienced leader, consultant, and coach with a passion for helping organizations continuously improve in delivering value to their customers. So they are all about customer centricity, making life for the customers very seamless. She possesses a solution-oriented mindset and very passionate about people over processes, which is one of the Agile manifesto. She is skilled at change adoption, gaining critical buy-in, and establishing trust for changing processes and environment. She is experienced and competent in Agile ways of working, product management driven, leadership in coaching, a coach for leaders, and team building in retail, technology, and financial solution. Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Hello, everyone. It is absolutely an honor to be here. I am delighted, and I can't wait to have an amazing conversation with these other incredible women. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to go straight to Shannon. Thank you so much for doing that. So, and on to Shannon. Shannon is the CEO and MD. I mean, when you hear things like this, you just aspire. You are inspired to continue aspire for greatness. Shannon Ewan is a collaborative leader and business consulting professional with considerable experience in IT solution delivery, enterprise agile transformation, professional coaching, training and facilitation, project management, business analysis, okay, and software development with a proven track record of successful service delivery and high customer satisfaction and rating, seasoned personal manager, committed to employee engagement and empowerment, experience in client and business partners in the public and private and international sector, like we have here in Africa. So do you want to say something to everyone as well?
Thank you, Mercy. And like Jessica, I'm delighted to be here. I'm really happy to engage in this conversation, and I hope everyone's enjoying the program so far.
It's been a long day, and I am, although I'm not feeling too well, but I'm very, very committed to this. So let's go to another woman that I thoroughly admire and I respect so much. And her name is Ellen Grau. She was formerly the interim MD for Agile Alliance. So, but I like to say that because it's very important when you see women in leadership. She helps organizations, leaders, and teams deliver better results through partnering with them to bring about circumstances in which they can work more productively and create meaningful change as business agility coach. And she helps team and leaders in all parts of the enterprise to actively address challenging circumstances and unlock human potential. She introduces techniques from Scrum, Lean, Kanban, extreme programming, and system coaching to foster resilient, collaborative environment that can rapidly adapt to changing business circumstances. She designs and delivers training and workshop in variety of experiential format to build the foundation for lean and agile mindset and practice. And she uses coaching and facilitation to resolve tough people's problem and overcome obstacle and organizational change at the team, managerial, and corporate level. Do you want to say hello, Ellen?
There we go. Got to find that mute button. Thank you for the introduction. And I just would like to add how delighted I am to be back at Women in Agile Africa again. I spoke at the event last year and it was so much fun. And so I'm thrilled to be here again today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to actually have you join us. And I'm very, very grateful that you are here as well. So thank you ever so much. So let's deep dive into the first question, and which is going to be, let me pin everyone now to the pin post, okay? So we can see. And this question is going to be to everyone, okay? Can you share your personal Agile journey and how it led you to embrace the Agile leadership and practice, even adoption of the mindset? I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure you're doing okay with it. Who's going to go first? Shannon? Okay.
I can start. Thank you. My Agile journey, although I think it took roots even earlier, but it started in about 2007 on the first implementation for, I was actually Marriott International. And I think early on in that implementation, I really was introduced to this idea of Agile really involving mindset shifts. So paradigm and mindset shifts, and thinking about how we think about our abilities and our ability to collaborate, and looking at our abilities as something that we can improve upon and really lean into. So looking at the work of Carol Dweck and the growth mindset, and that's something that stayed near and dear to my heart and why I've been involved in this work as long as I have. Really looking at embracing the potential of people and creating environments for them to thrive, and thinking about how much more impactful organizations can be when they create those environments, and then also what that does to really help people live more fulfilling lives, which is also very important to me. So I'll stop there and let one of the others jump in, because I could keep talking.
Who would like to go next?
I'll jump in, because there are a couple of things that Shannon said that sort of I have parallel experiences and parallel thinking about that. So I actually didn't start off in high tech. I started off working with people with developmental disabilities and helping them figure out how do they become part of their communities? How do they navigate their environments? How do we hack the world around them so that they can be more successful? And then through kind of a twist of fate, I ended up working in software development. There was an election, things changed. And in the course of working in software development and having a big interest in user-centered design, which was about how do we work closely with more people to help them solve their problems, and moving from there into agile ways of working, it struck me that it is all about how do we build community more effectively around the problem space that we're working in. You know, Agile started in software design, but the 17 dudes who wrote the manifesto, their desire was to make the world a better place for software developers. How do they create better environments for software developers to, and then through things kind that they want to do and solve their problems? In software development, there was an election, things changed. I'm getting a really weird echo delay there. I'm just going to stop for a moment. Okay.
No, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was getting about a 10-second lag. And so as I moved up the ranks in software development and moved into thinking about agility, it really struck me that it's about the people. It's about the connections between the people. It's about how do we shape environments, whether it's business environments, if we're working in this commercial space, solving problems for our clients, or in government, because I do a lot of coaching in government. How do we create spaces where people can come to organize themselves effectively around the work that they're trying to do together? so that they can do the best possible work? And how do we get them to work more closely with the people they're serving so that they can not only be doing what they think is their best possible work, but actually solving the problems that they're out to solve? And that's so for me, it's always been about building community, whether it's in sort of the work that I do with my clients, or the work that I do with the Agile community to help other people learn and grow and connect, because we're better together. We're better when we work together. We're better when we're learning together. We're better when we're helping each other solve our problems. And that to me is that's what's at the heart of Agile for me.
Thank you so much. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Ellen and Shannon, I just resonate so much with sort of what I'm hearing, what really attracted you to agility and has held you here. I came from a software background, and what got me, I think, was I was, as I'm sure many of you have been, I was in a deeply waterfall, highly gated environment. And it was my last big program that I was a part of that we literally called it a death march. And it was 6 months of nights and weekends. And that means the people that I was working with were missing time with their families, with their pets, with their friends. And there's just no amount of pizza you can buy people for missing that amount of life, really. And that led me to just like, it was the very end of it. And I just thought, my goodness, there has to be a better way of doing things. And by the way, it was an utter failure. The customers hated the thing that we finally delivered 2 years later. And so that actually led me to do I literally came to Agile through Googling it, like finding it on the internet. I don't even know if it was Google at the time. But what I noticed about it is as I began to do some research and began to understand it, is it felt like all of a sudden there was a light into an approach in the way that we approach the work we do with a different level of humanity, and a different kind of relationship. We didn't have to be in battlement constantly. And in fact, we cannot be generative and creative when we are at arms. And so how do we come to the work we do in a way that is collaborative, that is in relationship? Because when we're in deep relationship, that's where amazing things can happen. And so I started with a very small team and then ended up doing for the entire organization. And then from there moved on and got to participate in a lot of organizational transformations. And to me, it's the act of bringing humanity back into the workplace and the amazing things that can come from that.
Thank you so much. I was trying to find the mute button, the unmute button there. Okay, so I'm going to get Nadia probably to ask the next question, because Nadia is the chairperson for this year's conference. So this is something that, to speak to the point that Ellen has raised about communities. No one person can build a community. No one person can foster change. It is a collaborative journey and activity. So I would like to ask a question with regards to share some practical nuggets. Can you discuss the importance of collaboration and cross-functional team in an agile leadership? Now there's an advent, Africa, no thanks to COVID, or should I say thanks to COVID, there's more remote working happening now in Africa, not because they're necessarily adopting the agile way of working. And so can you share some tips, importance of collaboration for a cross-functional team and some strategies to foster collaboration and make sure value is delivered at the end of the day? The next voice you probably hear. I'd like you all to answer this question. I'll bring on Nadia. Nadia would ask the next question. Okay. Yeah. Ellen, do you want to go first, or Shannon go first?
No, sure. I'll jump in. It's interesting because you talked about how, as a result of the pandemic, suddenly everybody is working remotely a whole lot more. And while that's opened up all kinds of possibilities, right? It's enabling me to speak at this event this morning. It's fabulous. I think it's actually presented a lot of a challenge in terms of fostering collaboration. This is what I'm seeing in the field, because it's when we're physically in the same place, it's often, in many ways, it's a lot easier to build those relationships, to build those connections, to naturally figure out, hey, we have this problem to solve, let's solve it together, rather than we have this problem to solve, let's piece up the work, and you take your piece, and you take your piece, and you take your piece. And so I think one of the things that we have to think about right now, as we're all figuring out how do we work in these completely remote or hybrid ways, and I actually think hybrid is more difficult, is literally is how do we, one, create the opportunities to create the social connections, because it's that relationship building. It's taking the time to get to know the people that you're working with, not just for the work they do, but who they are. It's getting the time to get to know them that helps build the relationships that enable us to come together as a team and then work effectively together. So building time into the workday for that, building explicitly ways for how do we connect with each other so that it's not just us getting together in the meeting to talk about the tasks that we have to do and then going off and doing our separate thing. I wish I had beautiful hacks about just set your environment up this way and that will be taken care of. I can't say that I do, but really focusing on how do we create those, how do we invest in building the relationships, because that's of equal importance to planning how we do the work.
Do you mind if I jump in on
Yes,
Ellen?
please.
I think what I want to highlight and underline about what you just said was the truly taking the time to get to know one another. And I find that fascinating. One of the things that there was a collaboration report that came out in 2022 that talked about most collaborators sort of land in one of three buckets. Now, spectrum, right? Somewhere within the spectrum of, and if we don't take the time to get to know how our colleagues best collaborate, we're going to miss voices, we're going to miss connection, we might get frustrated. There's all kinds of things that come from not understanding how we collaborate best together. So there's relational, which is something that you just pointed on. Honestly, this is mine. If I'm not in deep relationship with someone, I'm going to hold ideas back. Not because I mean to, but because it takes some time for me to trust that we can bring totally unbaked ideas to the forefront and play with them together. I need to be in relationship for that. There are some that are introspective. So these are the folks that need the time to process what's being brought up. They may need some silent writing time. Ellen's identifying right now. Yep. And that can often be done by like silent brain writing or even one-on-one conversations before coming back to the larger group. And then there's expressive. This is not me at all, but the people who can just jump right in and start talking about whatever it is, whether it's been well thought out or not, those people are incredible. And I wish I was more like that, and I'm not. So it's how do we design our experiences as we come together in ways that are in service of all of those different styles. Do we need small breakout rooms? Do we need to, we need to spend time in relationship and building that connection. And do we also want to allow larger group discussions where those expressives can come out and really play?
And just to add another element into this as we talk about collaboration and cross-functional collaboration, in the remote environment, it's even more important. It's very important in the in-person environment. It's really the shared goal, right? So putting forth the shared vision, shared goal, getting everyone to rally around that. And that's really being aligned to that helps them come up with the best, most creative solutions, because the folks working on the problem are going to have the best ideas about how to solve it, right? So it's like really getting everyone aligned to that and kind of taking the thread about relationship that both Ellen and Jessica have raised. It's one of the things that we find very valuable is looking at, team charters and really starting teams up the right way to kind of align them around that goal, help them become part of it, and then also start to really build those relationships on how do we best want to work together, how do we communicate, collaborate, et cetera, in a way that's going to help us bring the most value and in the most fun and have the most fun while doing it, right? So.
Fun at work, Shannon.
I know. No.
I love it.
So thank you. Nadia has a question for you, then I'll probably jump in. Over to you, Nadia.
Thanks, Mercy. First of all, I would like to apologize for joining late, but I was in another room, in another Zoom with where we are having another session. So I know that you are in good hands with Mercy. But anyway, once again, to appreciate the availability and the fact that you guys are here helping us with this project. Okay, going to my question. So Agile is often associated with flexibility and adaptability. Okay, so can you share examples of how Agile leadership has helped your own organization to navigate change effectively? I don't know who wants to go first.
They are very polite people. Just call one person.
Well, I can jump in with something quickly and then invite.
Thank you.
And so I think what we do, we really embrace the value around responding to change over following a plan. So we do go through a planning process because that's a very important process for shared understanding, et cetera. And we work very hard on not getting attached to a plan, especially not a long-term plan. And so working in terms of kind of looking at a year and then breaking it down into quarters and then breaking it down into iterations or sprints, depending on the process you're using. That really helps you hone in on what is the highest value, most important thing right now and leave the space to adapt later on. So it's really letting go of this notion of needing to have a certain long-term plan and getting more into what are the key priorities, what can we tackle now and learn, and then take on what the next highest priority is, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 months down the line.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Shannon. One of the things that's really amazing when you've got an entire organization actually into business agility, not just software agility, is that the fiefdoms that we used to have melt away. With some more melting is that sounds a lot easier than it actually is. But once those are relaxed and you've got a group of agile leaders in all parts of the organization, you notice that all of a sudden now, instead of what's best for me and my organization, it's what's best for us as a company and paying attention to those things. So the infighting stops, right? Because everyone's focused on the right thing. We no longer have, well, this is my baby, so it's my most important thing. We're saying, okay, let's implement a small part of this and see if that's actually, is this accomplishing the thing that we think it's going to accomplish? And if it's not, we actually get to shift to Shannon's point, we get to change our plan. And so we are no longer operating, I call it operating by tummies. Like my gut said, this is the way to go, which is a great starting point. But if you're not learning constantly about, was my tummy right? Or what's the data telling us? What's the information that's coming back from the field that's going to allow us to actually pivot and shift so that we're actually landing in the direction that we want to be going, accomplishing the things we want to accomplish, whether or not it was my idea at the beginning, or we've adjusted to make it the right thing for whatever it is that we're trying to do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your responses. Can I ask in the chat?
Yes, thank you.
Are you learning something? Have you learned one thing? Can I just check? A quick check-in with everyone. Have you learned something from the experience? Okay. Okay, if it's yes, what exactly? Just one word that you've gotten so far. I just want to know that we are present. Yeah, one word that you have taken away from tonight so far before I go to the next question. It's a conversation. We're not training because they've shared their story. And I believe people's story is more powerful than any training in the world because you remember. Change maker, fantastic, Makuba. Can I get more responses, please? Change agent, Nimi, thank you so much. More responses. A lot of learning going on here. Agile is what you need with you as a professional. Okay, collaboration, Choma, fantastic. Flexibility, Nana, good to see you. Good to see you, flexibility. Fantastic, thank you so much. Not just gut feeling, but data. That is really powerful. Funke is actually a data-driven person because I saw a presentation. I couldn't join, but I saw a presentation. So I'm actually very enthralled by all your responses so far. So let me ask the next question. So this question is going to be, in your experience, what are the key challenges organization faces when transitioning to agile leadership, and how have you been able to address them? This is very critical because at the peak of your career, you've worked with a lot of leaders, you work with a lot of organization institutions. So what are some of the key challenges that organization faces? And especially when you're trying to push that or encourage organization to adopt the agile ways of working. So what are some of the key challenges what organization face when transitioning from the waterfall way of working to the agile way of working, and how were you able to address them? Shannon, can I start with you?
Sure. So I think one of the things, and this is something I've learned on my own leadership journey as well, is that one of the things that we sometimes don't realize initially as agile leaders is that transformation needs to start with the leaders. And so I think a lot of times we think about leaders need to support an agile transformation, but it's much more than that. They need to embody the new values, the new ways of working, thinking about how do I need to show up differently as a leader to actually enable collaboration, incentivize team-based behaviors as opposed to individual behaviors, et cetera. And so we've been talking quite a bit more about that because a lot of times transformations will stall at the level where leadership is, and you need to have breakthroughs there in order to fully enable agility. And so just last week, I was giving a talk that I do on things that leaders need to unlearn to enable agility. So not needing to be the expert anymore, taking much more of a collaborative empowerment stance, et cetera. So that's an area, and I'm sure there are definitely other obstacles, but that's one that's been very true for what I've seen, especially recently.
I'm going to build on that because you touched on one of the things that jumped to mind for me immediately, which is about unlearning those behaviors, right? Because when you're going into a system that exists, a company that's been around for a long time, people have become successful doing the things that they do now. And so to go in and say, hey, well, if you want to get different results, you've got to do different things. That's requiring people to unlearn a whole lot of quite deeply ingrained behaviors that have helped them get to where they are now. And that's not necessarily a bad place, right? So coming in and going, hey, we're going to do all this all differently is a real challenge. It's a real challenge. And even if you intellectually understand, oh, I can see how this leadership stance, this set of behaviors is going to help us be more successful, undoing those reflexes of this is the behavior that I go to, especially when things are changing, especially when people are stressed. And we've all been under crazy stress, especially for the past 3-4 years, right? So people sort of double down on, but these are the things I know how to do. I'm going to keep doing it because I don't have to think about that at least. So unlearning the behaviors is the critical thing. The other part of it, however, that I think people really need to pay more attention to is focusing on how are you changing the system? How are you changing the environment? We talk all the time in change, and it's funny because I was just talking about changing people's behavior, but it's not just about telling people to do things differently or inviting them to doing things differently or, encouraging them to do things differently. It's about making sure the environment around them is designed to support the kinds of change that you want to see and not to constrain them back to those old ways of working, because even though you tell them, hey, we want you to sit in a room together and work this way, when everything about the way the rest of their workday is structured kind of guides them back to older ways of working. And you especially see this in the area of how do we encourage teamwork as opposed to how do we encourage individual heroics? How do we recognize leadership that fosters teams and individual performance rather than is evaluated on how powerful and directive do you appear to be, right? We have to spend a lot of time looking at the systems that exist in the workplace to bring about change.
Thank you so much. That was really powerful. Who's going next after that?
I love what you're saying about really honoring where they are and where they've been, all of the work that they've done to get to that point. We wouldn't even be in the room with them if they hadn't done all of that amazing work. So I love making sure that we honor exactly where they are, because they have done the best they can with everything that they've been given at that moment. I think the other thing that I think is important to pay attention to, and I make up whether or not this is happening as much as it used to, but Agile paints a really beautiful picture of what could be, what might be possible. And so there's a ton of benefits that come with agility. So leaders, oftentimes they come in and plug in Agile. Just make us Agile, do it. And to your points earlier, is oftentimes it actually has to start with the leadership, with the structure. And we don't get those benefits without implementing the practices. But the thing is the practices of agility are not enough, right? I think of it as sort of a pyramid. So the bottom of that pyramid, the foundation, is the values of agility. So if the values aren't there in the culture, in the organization, the entire thing is going to topple. So we have to start there. The next is the principles. Again, everything's going to topple over if we don't have those truly ingrained in our DNA as an organization. Then you can put the practices in place, which will get you the benefits. But you can't just come in and say, we want quote unquote faster, or any number of things that the leaders, the C-suite want, without really making sure that the entire structure is there. Because otherwise we're doing practices on top of ugly culture, and culture that isn't ready for getting to the benefits that agility can provide.
We're doing mechanics of Agile on top of an ugly culture. That is powerful. Wow. That was deep. That was deep. Somebody want to say something?
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. It's a really useful, if you are in the midst of changing how you're working, a thought experiment that's really, really useful is to take some of those practices and think about, if we're coming from a place of Agile thinking and Agile principles, what is the purpose of this practice? What do we get out of this practice? Use, for example, if you're doing Scrum, daily stand-up is a great one. If we're coming from a place where we're really trying to focus on collaboration and adaptive planning, what does the daily stand-up do for us? And that might shape how you undertake that particular practice. But then if you look at it through the lens of, if what our organization cares about is accountability or predictability or any other number of things, which are not necessarily bad things, but they are different things. And if our focus is on, and I'll use accountability and predictability as the example, the daily stand-up takes a very, very different shape. And that's a really good way to think about, what kind of Agile are we really doing in our environment? And I kind of jumped on this because I had this conversation at a client site last week, where it hadn't occurred to people's minds that you could, we're doing Scrum, we must be Agile. And I said, well, think about how are you using Scrum as a tool in your workplace? What is it actually doing for you? And I thought about it and thought, I can see that maybe we're not getting what we hope out of this, because we're doing the dance moves, but we're not listening to the music. And so it's very mechanical, and it's very, you're not going to get what you hope unless you've got the right music in the background that is what you're dancing to.
That was really cathartic. Honestly, we're doing the dance move without listening to the music. And that's really speaking to the mechanics of doing Scrum. This is powerful because I know, just listening to you speaking experientially, not just textbook, I think it's really powerful. And that's why for me, sessions like this, I do not take for granted, because there are a lot of things that are said that powerful nuggets that can actually become a catalyst for anyone to grow. So let me do another check-in. What have you taken from that session so far before I jump into the next one? I want to read in the comments. I see quite a lot of messages. Agile way of working has to do with unlearning behaviors. Thank you, Bola. Enable the environment is suitable. Fantastic. So true. Mechanics of Agile do not work, especially when facing organizational resistance. Absolutely. It doesn't work because what value are you? Okay, I see Mimi. Fostering change is a continuous process. Okay, Pity Faith says that transformation begins with the leaders. Indeed, it does. It does begin with the leaders. Can I get more responses? Are we getting something out of tonight? I am. My brain is really packed full, so I'm very, very excited. Okay, Choma, build Agile structure before transitioning. Don't just plug in Agile. That is really powerful. So I want to open the floor to anybody that has a question for them. Please, who wants to ask any question that is relating to what they do, how they do, and how that can help you? Anybody? Before I go to the next question. Anyone in the audience have a question to ask?
Merci.
Okay.
Maybe you go to the next one and people will write while you are talking,
Okay.
and then eventually you come back.
Fantastic. Okay. So how do you measure the success of Agile leadership? I don't know if it's measurable, but how do you measure the success of Agile leadership within an organization? And what matrix or KPIs would you say is most valuable? But I think Ellen has already answered that. What value do you want to get implementing Scrum? What value? So that question, as it sounds, what do you look out for? What gives you your definition of done? That yes, if you tick this box, this has added value to the person. What matrix would you say you're going to use? Anybody? Okay, I'll call you again, Shannon.
Sure. So I would add, one of the things that we look at, especially for smaller organizations, is kind of measuring the effectiveness of agility and leadership, the same as we measure our business effectiveness, right? So we're looking at what are the outcomes that we are trying to achieve, what's the value that we're trying to create in the world. And, looking at some of that, it's pretty much synonymous. If you've got the right leadership behaviors, if you've set up the right environment, that's kind of what you're tracking towards. Because I think it kind of come up here a bit in this conversation. We don't want to do Agile for the sake of doing Agile or putting new practices in place. It really is about having better outcomes for our customers and creating a better workplace for individuals. And so, some of the things we look at directly are customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, growth, and employee turnover. We look at our program quality, and we really balance the quality versus the revenue growth so that we're not too focused on revenue. So we really look at what is most important for our values, kind of set those up, and then leadership is also evaluated in the same way. And then I think we do take a very adaptive approach to the metrics as well. We don't look at them as absolutes. We look at them very much relative, the relative progression and monitoring them frequently to tweak things, and then also balanced against one another, right? So that we're not overemphasizing one aspect of the business to the detriment of another.
Yeah. I think.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Ellen.
sorry. I was going to say, I think it's often challenging to, it's great. We can develop great metrics for how successful are we doing the thing that we do in terms of whatever the outcome we're after, whatever the business we're in. I think, and there are some models for how do we assess leadership effectiveness. I think they're harder to get a grip on. It's harder to measure that behavioral change, that behavioral effectiveness. One of the heuristics that I look for that's purely qualitative is how willing are people to bring bad news to the table. I think that's a really powerful measure of whether people are actually stepping into Agile leadership, that they are willing to I will say respond, not positively, yay, we have terrible things going on, but they're willing to be receptive when things don't turn out the way that we're expected, because that's the way life works, right? We don't get the results we want. We have problems all the time. And great leaders will go, that's great. Thank you for bringing this information to the table. Now let's figure out what to do about it together. So if you can see that happening in the environment, that's one of the indicators, I think, of really strong agile leadership principles being in play. The other behavior that I look for is agile leaders who are willing to say in public, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have this answer. Let's figure it out together. And again, that's a sign that, you know, more traditional approaches to leadership are the farther you get, the more powerful you should be, the more all-knowing you should be. You're the person responsible. And for leaders who can step into the place of going, we need to figure this out. Life is uncertain. Things are moving very quickly. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody could know. So let's figure out what information we have and how do we work with it. And again, those are two measures that are really difficult to measure quantitatively or even qualitatively, systematically. But they're things that you can look for in your environment to go, are we changing how we think about leadership here?
Thank you so much. Jessica?
I mean, I kind of double down on what both of you had to say, you know, things like NPS or team health, definitely great indicators. Shannon, what I loved that you brought in was that each one is a part of the story. And any of this data that you're gathering is a part of the story. And unless you're looking at it holistically, you're going to miss stuff. And so seeing all of that and getting curious about it, because we could be wrong about what we're reading into the data as well. And so really actually getting the full story, I think is really important and also takes time. So all of this stuff takes time, and it's like slowing down to speed up. It's let's learn now so that we're better in the future. And that can be a tough sell when everybody's, you know, we're in a complex, chaotic world, and taking the time to be introspective, for leaders to take that moment to say, I'm not going to beat somebody over the head for bringing this problem, but in fact, I'm delighted that we've learned something, right? One of the things that I teach almost everybody that I work with is my favorite acronym is FAIL. First attempt in learning, FAIL. First attempt in learning. So to Ellen's point, when you have leadership go from what on earth, not we're going to burn everything to the ground, to fantastic, thank you, what did we learn? And where can we go from there? That is a massive shift in behavior, which allows for the really important stuff to be talked about, which in traditional models, we quite frankly haven't.
Wow, that was powerful. Who can tell me what she said? The acronym for FAIL, if you were paying attention. Who can type it in the chat? Okay, somebody has already done it. Thank you, Shada. First attempt in learning. I feel that is really, really powerful. I mean, let me speak experientially. When we did Women in Agile 1.0, I tell you, it was a first attempt in learning. Nadia, it was the all hell broke loose. I think we are the only group that has done something this crazy. French, Portuguese, and English in 3 days. We had 50 speakers last year. It's all hell broke loose. But it was our first attempt in learning. And that is so powerful, because everything that we did wrong, thanks to agile ways of working, we've been able to implement. This year has been such a breeze. We've not had any chaos. So I'm going to steal that first attempt in learning. I actually am a firm believer of embracing failure. Oftentimes, people are so terrified of failing. I actually welcome failure, because if I don't fail, I wouldn't know what to improve on. Although maybe something I should ask is off the curve. How many of you struggle as leaders with perfectionism? If you struggle, what have you done to overcome it? Because I know it's my greatest strength and greatest weakness. So How many of you have struggled with perfection?
I like to call myself a recovering.
Sorry, I can't hear you, please.
Oh, I was saying I'd like to refer to myself as a recovering perfectionist. It is a constant journey to let go of that and make it about, it's about getting better. It's not about perfect. And there's an expression, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So often we end up doing nothing because we're trying to be perfect. And we could go so much farther together if we're willing to look at this as incremental improvement instead of striving for perfection.
Wow, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Too many things that I've gotten. Okay. And Jessica, I see your hand was raised. I see I'm not alone.
A lot of nodding. Shannon, I definitely resonate with that. I think one of the moments in my life that I hope I will always remember was I had a athletic coach look at me and say, you know, we are at practice. We are not at perfection. Every day we come in and we practice, we practice, we practice, we practice. We are not saying we are coming in for perfection. Yoga is a practice, not a perfect. We're not yoga perfects. We're yoga practitioners. And so that to me, that it was that moment of light bulb that I was like, oh, literally all of this is practice. So what we're doing is practicing to get better, not practicing to get perfect. So if I can pull that thread throughout my life, rather than always striving for that thing that actually isn't attainable, and there's some ease in my chest.
Thank you so much. Ellen, I see that your hand was raised. How many of you did this help? Perfectionism. If you're struggling with perfectionism, just type P. If you're not, just type no, okay? Let me know whether I have some people that we are in the same gang, okay? P, okay, it's coming in, okay? Okay, Erica, you're free, okay, thank you. Is it just two? Okay, recovering, Makuba, okay, no, Clara, okay? Okay, perfect. Oh, for me, don't worry. We have heard something. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It is my greatest weakness, and I'm really trying to overcome that. So thank you for sharing that. My final question: does anybody have questions before I ask this? Well, I'd like to ask this. Maybe I'll open the floor for a few minutes to anyone. Okay, Erica, I see your hand is up. As an Agile leader, let me take this one before Erica comes in. As an Agile leader, do you balance the need for structure and processes with the Agile value of responding to change? I think this is like a 2-in-1, and I think it's quite relevant to what we're talking about. As a leader, do you balance the need for structure and the need for processes with Agile value with regards to responding to change? Then I'll let the last question come in.
I do think it is a constant balancing act. It's not something you just get right and set and forget. So it's this constant thinking about the balancing, the kind of the being and the doing, right? The value side and the practices and side. Because without the practices, you're not going to get as far as you could either, right? You need both. And so it's really looking at that. And I think in my journey, at first, it was about sort of unlearning, being very practice and process heavy. And then I almost went too far in the other direction. And I'm realizing, no, people do need a bit more structure, a bit more guidance. We need something to learn from. We need a shared language around our ways of working, right? So, and again, I wouldn't say it's a problem that's, solved. It's something that you have to continuously be intentional about, at least in my experience.
I love that pendulum swing, Shannon. I think Ellen and I were both nodding so much our glasses almost fell out. But yeah, it is. It's like when you discover something new, sometimes you pendulum swing so hard in the other direction that you actually lose sight of what was important about what you were doing before. And it's taking the time to kind of rebalance yourself, but a constant balance. And processes and tools will be ever evolving. It even says that in the manifesto. We are discovering. We haven't gotten there yet. And so I think it's the willingness to continuously check in on the processes that you've put in place and the tools that you're using, because they're changing all the time. what's not going to change is the value that we are hoping to get out of those processes or those tools that we're using. So are we still achieving the value or the purpose of why we put this in place in the first place or not? That's where we got stuck, I think, in Waterfall. I mean, I would have to get like 56 signatures to get something released at some point. And I remember this project I was on, I got all 56 signatures and I went to my boss and I said, I got it. It was on a piece of paper. What do I do with it? I don't know, stick it in a drawer. Well, why on earth are we doing this, right? But nobody had taken the time to ask why we were doing something.
Hey,
Ways of doing it now.
I'm ready.
So,
I'm just trying to look for the thing.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was just juggling. I realized that Leslie's supposed to join us, but I had to send her the Zoom link. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing. Erica, I see that your hand was up. We can take one or two more questions before we jump to the next session. Erica?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
I had a question for the ladies on the panel. My background is really more in legal and compliance. And I was wondering if you could speak toward any of your experiences having to try to implement either processes or just maybe culture change in an environment where either something has already gone terribly wrong or we're anticipating something going terribly wrong. And particularly when there has to be lots of process and procedure because of the legal compliance piece or the risk management piece that has to be applied. I was wondering if you had any experiences with maybe those more structured applications of Agile or Waterfall.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here because I do a lot of work, as I said, in government and in regulated industries, and these sorts of concerns come up. Earlier in my career, a lot of my sort of public sector government clients were like, oh, we couldn't possibly be Agile. We need to be auditable. I've been an Agile coach in the Office of the Auditor General for the Government of Canada. And one of the practice, the transparency that comes with agility tends to serve the interests of risk management and compliance and those legal concerns very well. The process by which you gather and expose the information might be a little bit different than traditional methods. But if you sit down and have a conversation about what is the outcome that we are trying to achieve by this particular process, this particular compliance mechanism, you can often find that there are ways to achieve those outcomes, to achieve those goals in lighter weight ways or different ways, but you actually get more insight into what's going on if you're really focusing on how do we make the work visible, how do we make the decision-making visible, and make it visible in real time so we can see where we are today. And organizations that are prepared to have those conversations, not just ask, ooh, how do we run this process that serves our compliance needs, but how do we make sure we are serving the compliance needs and building that into our new ways of working? Everybody's happy when they do that. Everybody's happier because it's more transparent, more visible, more of a sense that we're actually seeing the real data, not the information that people have put together to serve the needs of the process. So there's a agility, when those concerns are present, agility actually serves those needs better, I think, than more traditional processes.
Thank you so much for the questions and the answers. Does anybody by any chance have any other questions that you want to ask? Otherwise, oh, my boss is here. I love her so much. She's an amazing mentor, by the way, a mentor that I forced myself on, okay? And she made this happen, by the way, by recommending people to speak with. And we just felt, what should we do? But don't let me quickly digress. I want to say sincere thanks to Ellen Ellen, I'm still coming to you. I know you are my mentor directly and coach, whether you like or not. It's a forced relationship. But I love what we have said. Fail. I really love the acronym. I love everything that you said. So let me just do another round, Rob, and just ask you all to drop what you have learned today. Oh, I saw a lot of P. Okay, don't worry. I'm a recovering perfectionist as well, trying to get out of my own way. So let's quickly check in what you have learned, and I'll call Nadia to just do a round off of thank you to all the panelists. Please don't go. Leslie will be sharing with us, but this session will be a wrap. Importance of what you need to know, and Liz as well, someone that I love as well and admire. Nadia, are you there? Please, can you quickly let's know what you have learned, and while we are still speaking to that, I want to drop a link if you've learned anything. And Ellen, you don't mind being followed, Shannon and Jessica, right? Please, could you drop your LinkedIn so that they can follow? Otherwise, I'll drop it for you. Please follow them. There are lots to learn from them. They are industry players. So I'll drop all their links in the chat, and I'll drop a final link. I want you to say thank you to them. It's very important that we recognize that it takes a lot for people to share and make out time to share their expertise with you. And it's not something, okay, Jessica and Shannon have shared all their links in the chat, and I'll drop a final. Let me share, okay, Elena shared. So please follow them, but I want you to drop something and say, maybe it could be the acronym that you have gotten, because Zoom is going to close. All your thank yous, everything is going to end here once I end the Zoom. But that link will not close. It will be there evergreen. Anyone that comes there would see something. So write something, tag them. What's your takeaway from today's session from them? Please tag them and let them know how valuable today was. Can we do that? Can I get some confirmation that we're going to put a comment? I'll leave you guys 2 minutes to do that. Yes, yes, yes. Can I get some yes? Okay, thumbs up, thumbs up. Can you go there? Click on, yes, fantastic. Please just type on the link that is I've shared there. Click on it. That's the live recording for today's session with them. Please don't go. The next session is with my boss, a phenomenal woman that I truly, no, Nadia, thank you before, vote of thanks before the next session. Okay.
I know, Mercy, when you take off, you don't stop.
I know.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Shannon. It has been a great talk. I'm sure everybody is leaving here richer. It's not every day that we get the opportunity to get insights from experienced people. It's not so. This is one of the things that we wanted to do with this conference, is exactly this, to bring in people that have a large experience from different locations, different places, and share with our community, especially people here in Africa, to make them believe, to make us believe that it's possible, right? And listening to you and the reaction to on the charts, it proves that we are doing a good thing here, Mercy. We are really creating impact. So we really appreciate, we don't take it for granted, your availability, the fact you give your time, you give your experience and your advices. Thank you. And of course, we need to thank also to the attendees, the people that have been